We are back for another day of the Revenge Tour court trial. Since yesterday started with a sidebar, following with the court then being emptied, I think this court order from the judge preparing for Monday is worth mentioning. It is ordered authorizing the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to transport the defendant to court using any means necessary, to include force, to secure the attendance of the defendant for her trial on 6/09/2025 at 10:30 a.m. Yes. If you watch that trial in my coverage, I mentioned that it looked like Lori was carrying like one of those cheap blue masks in her hands when she walked in. I'm assuming she's playing sick again and the judge is just fed up. I would not be shocked if this order happens literally every day for the rest of the trial as standard practice. So at this point, Detective Pillar is back up for Lori's cross. He interviewed Brandon in the car, and it was audio recorded. Lori asked if the detective admonished Brandon to not contact Melanie, and Pillar responds that there were actually phone call attempts to be made to Melanie, and after that, he was encouraged to not contact her, and if she contacts him, to contact Pillar. Lori asks, what do you mean by phone calls? Also, I love how Lori's playing sick when I have a cold. They tried to get Melanie's side of the story since Brandon most recently had a relationship falling out with her. Brandon tried to call from his phone 3 times in the car, and she didn't answer. Could you imagine being Melanie on the other side of that call? As far as the detective knows, Brandon didn't contact her, and the detective had his phone. The detective was able to contact Melanie, and they met on October 3rd. She didn't ask for an attorney. It was about an hour talking. Lori asked if she talked about business deals Brandon was involved in. Objection, hearsay. Now, I believe this is about the Island Juice thing. People have told me, I have not looked it up, people have told me that it was, some failed business with Lori in Hawaii. He investigated things he was told in the interview. Lori says, did you investigate something offered by Melanie? He asks her to explain what she's talking about. Lori says sure and starts going through papers, and the judge mentions maybe have him review it and references hearsay. Lori, instead of giving it to him, asks, did you follow up with anything from that interview with Melanie? Yes. Melanie then contacted him on October 14th. Melanie reached out regarding custodial issues, seeking advice. The detective doesn't remember being provided the VIN number from Brandon. He's not saying it didn't happen, he just doesn't remember it. License plate is from Chandler Photos. He met with Chandler October 9th. Lori says you didn't find the Jeep was gray in her household due to a VIN number Brandon provided. He says, no, that would be fair to say. He discovered a gray Jeep on the 9th. Early in the investigation, people didn't call it gray, and I love how she's still focusing on the color. They never specifically searched for a green Jeep with a Texas license plate. They didn't have enough to go out looking for that. They didn't look for a blue Jeep with a wheel. Lori asked how many times he's spoken to Brandon. Objection, asked, answered, and potential 404B. The judge allows it, but said be aware of issues. Multiple times, calls, texts, emails. Lori has him handed a proposed defense exhibit. Pillar says it looks like an email between him and Brandon. It's from February 2020. State objects. Judge says we already discussed this exhibit. It's sustained. Not being entered into evidence. In that email, did you request Brandon provide you with financial information involving his ex-wife, Melanie? State asked for a sidebar regarding defenses. It's like one of the possible defenses, I assume, is that they were seeing if Melanie had the same motive that Lori did with Charles, which they know it was a life insurance policy. And yes, Melanie did have one, and the shooting was done before the divorce was finalized. Lori asked if Pillar requested financial information about Melanie from Brandon. Yes, and he provided it. Lori asked if there was in another email, and he says, unsure, but probably. Lori says Melanie had financial gain if something were to happen to Brandon. That is correct. Lori says he provided you with screenshots of information about Melanie that didn't have to do with finances. Objection, and this was kind of quiet on the feed I was listening to. 404, 405, I think, sustained. And he said he read the documents that were sent to him. Lori asked, did you include those in part of your investigation? And he responds, they are included in an investigation. Yes. And to me, is that a hint about the open Melanie investigation? That is the thing, right? Like, the public knows now. The public knows. The public knows. The public is going to want to see action because the public wanted action beforehand. Now they know there's an active investigation. It's gonna be interesting. On those screenshots, does Melanie have a theory of what happened on October 2nd that you reviewed? He says not that he remembers. Objection, hearsay, relevance. Judge tells Lori to show him the document and then rephrase the question. He's looking through the document. Lori asks, is that what Brandon sent to him? The witness says this isn't a Word document, not an email. There's no headers or footers. He can't testify this is exactly what was given to him as an attachment. He doesn't remember this particular, but the allegations in it seem familiar. Lori tells him that Brandon sent it to him. Objection, due to time frame. It is possible he read it at some point. On February 12th of 2020, there were other investigations he was working on as well. Lori asked if he disregarded the information. Obviously, there's an objection there. Sidebar. And at this point, we have no idea what is in this document, by the way. Could be the pink pony, bamboo shirts, even her secret green chili chicken enchilada recipe. We don't know what the detective's looking at. Lori completely disregards and goes back to the Tesla. Asked about the Tesla window, it was thrown away after photos were taken. It wasn't preserved because they collected what was needed. The photos indicate a possible indent with a bullet. So it's in the photos, they don't have the actual window still. After they processed the Tesla at the scene, it was transported to be reviewed inside a facility. It was a short last review, and it was actually driven over by this detective. It wasn't placed into evidence or impounded. It was the victim's only vehicle and only phone. Lori's not used to those things. Think of how many phones she has. Both were turned over within a day. Lori asked if he knew he would need to keep it if they ever charged someone with a crime so that the defendant's own experts could test it. And he said cases evolve over time into more, and in this case, they didn't maintain custody of the Tesla. Lori asked about the vehicle, how could her experts test for trajectory? He explains the detectives couldn't have tested for trajectory. Maybe you could now with advances in technology. Lori asked, how would she have an expert test it now? You can't. Without the vehicle, you can't test from pictures. No testing on the glass. The bullet fragments cannot determine rifling because it wasn't intact and there was no gun or jacket or cartridge to verify against. It wasn't sent for testing because they wouldn't get any results. Lori asked if it was a handgun instead of a rifle, would that make a big difference in the story Brandon told? No, it would not. Lori seemed a little taken aback by this, but no. If you were a handgun shooting at you or a rifle, you're still being shot at. It's the same crime. And technically there could be an extension or something put on the handgun to make it look like a rifle if they wanted to, but these weren't the smartest criminals. I'm going to assume it was a rifle. And Lori asked if you didn't test if it was from a handgun or a rifle, and he said it's not testable. 4 to 5 neighbors heard a loud bang. The reports have the detectives talking to neighbors or home surveillance with a bang or extended vehicle idling. Lori asked multiple neighbors? Yes. Lori wants their names. Revenge tour. He can't remember them. Could it have just been Brandon in the one video? Others heard the loud noises. The detectives noted their addresses in the report. Lori is fighting on him. It was just a ring camera and Brandon who said it was a loud noise. He repeats, more in the reports. Lori says, not in the report that I read. Objection, testifying, asked, answered, argumentative, sustained. Lori has him review the affidavit to get the infotainment center out of the Jeep. Lori says he claims neighbors said gray Jeep in sworn statement. We'll get more into this because he didn't actually say that. Lori is just lying. That is going to shock you. Lori is just lying with the affidavit that he said the neighbor said it in the affidavit. He's just lying. But in testimony, you said they didn't say it. And this is the document, as I said, to get the infotainment center. He doesn't recall who said it, but it was for the vehicle they were looking for due to photos and LPR hits. Lori says it wasn't the vehicle described by neighbors. He said he didn't have vehicles described by neighbors. No. Lori says in-person statement, he swore neighbors saw a gray-colored hardtop two-door Jeep. He says he could exchange gray for dark, and that makes it, basically like that makes it better, right? At this point in the investigation, they confirmed what they were looking for was a gray Jeep. Lori had something else in the affidavit she wants him to look at. The state wants to know what she's talking about, and at this point, the state wants a sidebar. Gotta say, for anyone who hasn't seen it in the Sarah Boone coverage I did, actually, all the sidebars in that case were eventually made public due to the appeal. So I have a video on all of the sidebars post jury selection. That's available in the Sarah Boone playlist. So we might get them from this case a long time from now, and I think they'd be very interesting. The copy is handed to the clerk. So whatever it is they were talking about gets given to the clerk, and it's not like introduced into evidence and for the jury, and Lori does another question. And my guess at this point that it's 404, and the page is just given to the clerk for appellate reasons, probably with the sidebar noting why the judge isn't letting her do it. Initial investigation, most information came from Brandon. Brandon, the detective, were in close contact throughout the investigation. Lori asked about being on a first-name basis, and he said in longer investigations, it isn't uncommon to be in first names with witnesses and victims to keep it casual. The Tesla was given back, and after it was given back, he could do whatever he wanted with it. The fragments from the bullet were given to the facility, and they were impounded. They also took a cigarette butt from the street, but they didn't think it was involved, but it was within the crime scene tape at the time, and a neighbor pointed to it. He asked Brandon if he had any firearms. He didn't. The officers did clear the house and garage. The garage was open when he arrived, and Lori asked when he arrived. He gave the time. Melanie called him about October 14th, and her concern was child custody, and he told her to talk to an attorney. Lori says she came to you because Brandon had not returned the children to her. Yeah, that was something you shouldn't have said, Lori. Also, I wouldn't return my children to a murder cult with missing/dead children either. Court order be damned, right? Like, oh man, I wish the jury, like the jury is gonna it's one of those moments when the jury knows everything, right? This is one of those moments that's gonna flash back. Brandon wouldn't give the kids back. Oh, we couldn't think about it during the trial, but now I can think about it because I can take it into account. Oh. And then if they look up Melanie, they're going to find about her at like the grandparents' place with Alex trying to take the kids, and they're going to be like, oh, and there's an active investigation into Melanie. Oh, it's just like one of those moments where like, to be a fly on the wall when the jury learns, right? State objects, obviously. Sustained relevance. Lori says she was seeking help, but you really didn't have any for her. Aww. Objection, relevance, sustained. Yeah, Lori is just, trying to play like Melanie's the victim. The real victim. Because she's playing off this fact. The state can crush Lori, but they are holding back. I think the door is open. I think they could do it, and they're still holding back because they don't want to fight it in the appeal, right? Because Lori, in her Idaho appeal, if you haven't watched it, I cover it. In her Idaho appeal, it's like, well, 404 evidence was used. So they're fighting to not use it, and Lori is using that to try to screw with witnesses and try to get herself a mistrial or no verdict or even not guilty. She's trying to abuse it. And Lori at this point just says, that is all, with a sigh. And they have a sidebar. Obviously, they have a sidebar because the state knows the door is open, right? And the state's probably telling the judge, look, here is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say things that are leaning into it a little harder because of Lori. Probably explaining it to get it on the record why they're doing it. The state's up. A witness said the vehicle was dark. Brandon said camel or green. Brandon thought the case was tied to an incident in Chandler. He learned Lori had a dark-colored Jeep. After seeing the photos, the detective learned it was gray. The probable cause statement that said it was gray was after he saw the photo of it being gray. It was a gray Jeep he was after. He did not say a neighbor said it was gray in the probable cause statement that Lori was mentioning. He used all information, including the fact Lori owned a gray Jeep with a Texas license plate. He was asked about measurements of the Jeep and the Tesla. And I love the way she words this, because it kind of, a lot of this right now is to just shut Lori down. And if she tries to use these talking points again, she's done, right? She got destroyed here, in my opinion. He was asked about the measurements of the Jeep and Tesla. Brandon, the victim, did not stop after being shot at to mark his location and the Jeep's location. He did not tell the shooter to hold on a moment while he documents the rifle barrel sticking out of the Jeep, so later on they can figure out the angle for trajectory. None of that happens. It's not surprising Brandon didn't do that. Another neighbor saw the Jeep in the same place, same license plate, dark color, and the neighbor who saw it doesn't even know Brandon. You can't recreate the scene perfectly. And when you package an item, you cannot stop shattered glass from moving. Putting the glass in a box, storing it, and taking it back out, it's going to be in a different position. It's going to be broken apart. That is why they took photos. He was in his car interviewing Brandon. At times, Brandon talks soft and it can be hard to hear, but best evidence is the recording, not a transcript someone made. The Ring camera showed what appeared to be a Tesla driving towards Brandon's home with a timestamp and a loud bang. The bang was before Brandon called 911. He had no questions in his mind that the Tesla was shot. A gun was never recovered. A handgun can kill someone and a rifle can kill someone. And the defendant asked about no other license plate readers finding this Jeep, and that's not accurate. They talked of other hits in other locations for this Jeep on license plate readers before and after the shooting in Idaho. He did not create the reports from the phone. The report matched the Jeep leaving Idaho and being down in Arizona October 2nd, 2019. By February 2020, he was investigating multiple cases. And this is the moment. So already right now we've got like all of her trajectories, Lori's trajectory stuff destroyed. Her complaining about the color, we're going to get more into colors, but that's pretty damaged already. A lot of Lori's like nitpicking is destroyed, but here is the big one. Melanie's the victim, right? Lori is trying to paint this picture. Detective Pillar was investigating multiple cases involving Melanie. There you go, right? Right there. This is just destroying all of the angles Lori has used the whole case. He worked with the Rexburg police and other offices around there, DEA, Idaho search warrants, and more. Everything was put together to corroborate what Brandon told him on October 2nd, and it matched. He heavily relied on Idaho detectives, and they are in a better position to discuss the burner phones and storage units. We have at least one question from the jury. The jury. I love the jury here. Thank you, jury. I'm happy. I hated the first jury. Not all of them, but the problems they caused. This jury's doing well. Is it common for witnesses to confuse colors and not remember them accurately? Yes. Were the attempted phone calls to wife recorded in the car interview with Brandon? They were recorded. Were voicemails left explaining the situation? A voicemail left asking for a call back from Brandon. The detective later called explaining his role as detective, and then she called back. No follow-up from Lori, but the state jumps on it. It is not unusual for a witness to not always remember a color due to circumstances. Yes, people commonly mistake black for white, red for blue, assuming they aren't colorblind to begin with, and then it gets amplified with emotional or violent scenes. Colors of vehicles, clothing, or hair are mistaken, especially when adding a traumatic element. All of Lori's arguments just got destroyed, partly by the jury. And that's why I was like, okay, what's her new angle? We're going to have a new witness. What's Lori going to say? And I'm going to mispronounce this name. Vanessa Milke? Mielke. Forensic scientist from Mesa is up. She gives her qualifications. Sometimes different people do the cutting of the evidence and the testing, explains what DNA is, what can be found from it. Environments can make it harder to get DNA evidence. She explains what a DNA profile is. Sometimes there can be too little or too much DNA to get a good sample. Sometimes mixtures prevent saying how many are involved. A major contributor gives the highest amount in the mixture. Minor contributors can sometimes be inconclusive. You can get sex determining markers. Explains how they do DNA testing process. They got cuttings from a swab from the vehicle and made DNA profiles to compare to a Alex Cox DNA profile someone else made. She got a DNA sample from the steering wheel. It was a mixture. Major contributor was male. Major contributor matched Alex Cox. The frequency of another random person having the same DNA profile was sextillions for African Americans, quintillions for Caucasians, and I think it was quintillions again for Southwest Hispanics. Passenger seatbelts didn't have enough DNA. Interior passenger handle, not enough DNA. Lug nuts, not enough DNA. Gear shift had a DNA mixture of male and female. Alex Cox couldn't be eliminated, but also not 100% to say it's him. Driver's seatbelt buckle was Alexander Cox's major contributor. They give the super high chances for this. I think it was even higher than the last one, but it was a high number again. They went through the whole spiel with the different races. So 2 samples matched Alexander Cox, and Lori is ready for questions, and there are none. No questions from Lori, nothing from the jury. Lunch break. The judge does confirm that one piece of evidence from earlier was in fact for appeal purposes. The jury won't get it. Draft of the final instructions are given to both sides, and they head off to lunch. And I feel weird to say it when Pillar has been on the stand for 3 days. I feel we're moving at a decent pace. I feel like the experts might be going at a really decent pace. The phone stuff might slow things down. It definitely could end this week, even with the delay. I guess we'll see. I'm not sure how much is left for the state, if they'll choose to call everyone they had on their list. Maybe they don't feel they need it. I feel like Lori has to be angry at the jury because that color question, I mean, that really just... Someone... I wonder if that juror was asking the question because they don't know, or if the juror was like, I want to make sure other people on the jury realize how dumb this line of questioning is. Either way, we might find out later if they do interviews, but on to the next part. We are back. Kyle Mueller is up, a forensic scientist in Phoenix from police department. He goes through his credentials, talk of his gunshot residue training. He explains what gunshot residue is. It doesn't matter what gun or ammo is used. Same particles are looked for. You would expect to find GSR in a vehicle if a gun was fired. They don't have a half-life or evaporate. Unless you wash it away, it stays. GSR has been found in cars months after shootings. You might find GSR inside a car window months after. But if someone uses Windex, it might be removed. He explains a GSR kit. He explains if you find all 3 particles, it almost only comes from GSR. 2 elements in the particles. It's rarer, but it can be in the environment, and let alone could be from other things in the environment. Everything he tested had integrity seals, and each vial is labeled where it came from. He got information where they were collected, and first thing he did was check the windows. Most likely, windows wouldn't touch something that has GSR on it, so unless cleaned, it would most likely still have that GSR. Passenger side, interior, Back window, they found lead particles. Same window, they found 2 components of GSR at the same time. They count to 10 particles and stop. They found particles with all 3 elements from a discharge of a firearm as well. It was consistent with coming into contact with GSR or something that had GSR on it. Now, the passenger interior window sample just had common elements. Didn't just have all common elements, but all 3 at once. Had just common elements, no all 3 at once, I believe they said there. And then driver's side interior window, they found all 3 types of GSR residue. His conclusion was a gun was fired from inside the vehicle or something that came into contact with GSR. So let me repeat this, because there's a lot of elemental things. The back passenger windows, we're talking back part where back passenger that's got tinted, right? That had 3 element GSR. The passenger side front window had, I believe, just other components, didn't have the 3 part. But then the driver's side window had all 3. And the answer to that's probably, I'm guessing, Alex Cox fires the gun, drives, and at some point puts his hand on the window and transfers GSR. That's my guess. That's what it's sounding like. Let's see where we're at here. You wouldn't test a window if someone had went hunting to look for GSR because it wouldn't be there. That was real quick. Lori's up for cross. This goes real quick. A gun may have been discharged in the vehicle, yes. She asked if all 3 parts of a particle make it GSR, and he said that each of the 3 variants he referenced are GSR, and they're inside of GSR. Non-firearm sources do exist. Lead from solder or manufacturing can be in a component. 2 components are rarer, but sometimes fireworks or cosmetics. But you would never find a 3-component particle from fireworks. Lori asked if you could. You can't. Lori's the one that was bringing up this elemental stuff earlier when she was talking to a non-expert. Obviously, she didn't understand what she was talking about, and now it's coming back to haunt her. If the jury remembers, she's kind of screwing herself. With fireworks, you might find the 2. Brake dust for maybe 2 of the elements, but not 3. It doesn't know about hairspray or fertilizer having those elements. I wouldn't think you're going to find lead in your fertilizer. I'm going to say that. Probably not lead in your hairspray either. All 3 elements were found on 2 separate samples, and he just gets a sample of an area, so the number found isn't actually important. He doesn't collect the stubs himself, and he analyzed 3 of 8 that were collected. Redirect. He found the 3 element particles in those 2 locations. No matter the amount of fireworks you let off in the vehicle or the hairspray you spray, you won't get those 3 element particles. The fact of the amount isn't important. The 3 element particles existing is what's important. You can only get that combo from the GSR, and if you find all 3 of the elements, you have gunshot residue. There you go. The state is done, and there's no jury questions. Honestly, Lori kept trying to bring that one witness into the GSR stuff. If the jury remembers it, they'll realize she's a liar, and she's, misconstruing things. That's what she does. Next up is Ray Hermosillo. This one's kind of long. From Rexburg Police Department. He is next. He explains where the Rexburg, Idaho is and gives his credentials. November 1st, he spoke to someone from Gilbert Police and impounded Lori's Jeep. He was provided with the address and the unit. He received a probable cause statement and got a search warrant, went with multiple detectives. They did surveillance and couldn't find the Jeep that day. He had been given the name Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. He took photos of people going in and out of vehicles. He took a photo of Lori going in and out of a vehicle, in fact, and points at Lori. He even followed Lori to a Walgreens and back. She was driving a blue Nissan Rogue. He recognized his photos taken. Lori objects to them being submitted for relevance, but they are admitted. They are photos of Lori and the Nissan. They didn't find the Jeep November 1st. They looked all weekend and couldn't find it. They found it Monday. When the detective, or I think it was a detective at the time, anyway, he looked over after going to the gym, driving home from the gym or from the gym, and he just saw it. We are at 3 or 4 witnesses now who found evidence or were involved in part of the case with the gym. Brandon, that one neighbor was also going to the gym. This guy, the gym. I mean, apparently it's a lifesaver. Not just from working out. He had it towed and it was put inside their impound lot, told Gilbert police. They tried to tell Lori it got taken. They knocked on her door, but they couldn't get an answer. And it was never reported stolen. Isn't that interesting? Almost like they were hiding something. He was there when processing was done from the search warrant. He saw the Jeep tint was darker than allowed by Idaho law. He learned it was tinted at a shop later in the investigation. He was present for a second search warrant. Photos taken of receipts in the Jeep and of the Jeep. Receipt from Arizona, October 1st, 2019, and it's admitted and shown. The rear window of the Jeep can't be opened with the back door closed if the tire is on it. They show things found inside. They show an October 1st receipt at a restaurant in Mesa, Arizona. Los Favoritos. He had a potato burrito and Coke. Looked it up. That was part of their breakfast menu. It's actually a couple dollars more expensive now than it was then. Of course it is. Of course, I had to wonder. I mean, my guess is he went with it because breakfast was probably the only thing available. If breakfast wasn't available, I assume he would have went with their chicken enchiladas that were on the menu to think of home. He knew Brandon was shot at on October 2nd, so this was the day before that he was eating Mexican food. November 26th, they did more surveillance and met with Chad Daybell, her current husband. Alex Cox was with Chad Daybell at the time. They were unloading things from Alex's pickup truck into the apartment. If you watched the Charles trial or watched my coverage, you're going to remember that. A gold Ford pickup truck with Arizona personalized plates. Lori was living at that location. Alex Cox was living in the same townhome. This is sounding familiar. As I said, it's all from the previous trial. They submit an aerial view. Lori objects to foundation, but it's allowed. Witness shows where Lori and Alex lived, according to the documents where they lived. That's important. Lori is listed. We'll get there. Lori is listed renting an apartment. You're going to find out about that. He obtained the rental documents, but never saw her enter the 107 apartment listed as hers on the documents. That document also lists her Jeep Wrangler and blue Nissan. Alex Cox also lived in the complex, and he rented 175. They looked for Lori at 107, and nobody was there. Later, they obtained Alex Cox's rental documents, and it is shown. They knocked on the door of 175 to see if anyone would answer. They also tried 174. That's where Melanie lived. No answer at all 3 apartments. The next day, search warrants at Lori, Alex, and Melanie's apartments were executed, and nobody was home. 107, rented to Lori Vallow, was completely vacant. It looked like it was ready for a new tenant. No food, no beds, no furniture, no items, nothing. A 175, where Lori entered that day, they saw her entering this one. This one's rented to Alex Cox. There was food, furniture, beds, but the closets were empty. It looked like people grabbed what was hanging and took off. Photos and videos were taken of what they found, and inside 175, they found storage unit information sitting on a copier because these people are bad at crime. He verifies the photo of the unit in the document. They show the unit and 174 from the outside. While it was technically rented to Alex Cox, it contained storage unit agreement that belonged to Lori Vallow. This storage unit agreement was from October 1st. Lori used the name Lori Ryan. Almost like she had something to hide. That was her name before Vallow. He found women's clothing in the 175 garage. The garage was full of boxes and prepper barrels for water storage. Yes, don't forget, this was a whole prepper cult thing. It gets lost sometimes, but especially in this case, it has a lot less less Chad. That part kind of gets lost. They found Alex Cox paperwork. They found a variety of weapons, a variety of them. And there was given more exhibits. Lori objects, cumulative, so the judge looks at them and admits them. 175 was rented by Alex Cox, but Lori was seen going in her Nissan in the garage. The Jeep was nearby, and she was never seen at her listed apartment. The garage had Alex Cox's passport, credit card, taxes, mail, bins of what appears to be Alex's stuff, furniture, photos, and a variety of rifles. There were rifles with a threaded barrel, so you could put a silencer or a suppressor on it. Boxes of ammo, extra rifle barrel parts were laid out to be photographed, 3 full rifles, and additional uppers that could be changed out with stocks. They also went into Melanie's apartment. He knew Melanie had been married to Brandon. They got surveillance footage from the day Lori rented the storage unit, the day of the shooting, the day after the shooting, and portions for even more days. The state admits a new piece of evidence, stills of videos showing Lori's vehicle at the storage unit. That Ford mentioned earlier with personalized license plates was also at the storage unit in a photo. They show video of the storage unit. You can see Lori drive in. You can see Lori's vehicle park. Lori, get out. Go inside the office. Lori coming out with paper. They show Lori leave. They show Lori parked by a unit. They show the angle inside the unit. Lori is shown going to the unit. Nobody is with Lori on the first time. And the reason I'm repeating Lori is this is her case. This is her involvement in the conspiracy, and she did this part alone. Lori is back on the second, parked at the same building, but this time it's Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell. They both go into the building and they put a tire into storage. Chad's wheeling it. They take rolling it. Something large was brought in after. You can't see it from the angle. Inside angle, you can see the tire better being rolled, and you can't really see what the large object is, but it's pretty much going to be, I have to imagine, the backseat of the Jeep, right? It looks like the backseat of a Jeep. It's like that shape where you fold down the seat and it's kind of like a cube. Their hair like a not a cube, a rectangle. They're carrying it together. And obviously we're going to see more video, but time for the afternoon recess. We will be back. I mean, this segment here made Lori look so bad. I mean, she's got an empty apartment. That's odd. She's hiding out with her brother, empty closets, moving items, what appear to be from the Jeep, obviously being insinuated already, not outright said. On the day of the murder, she's going by herself to get the unit. Getting interesting. The jury's got to be thinking, wow, here's a literal pile of weapons in the garage. A lot happened in a short amount of time. We are back. We start strong. But before we do that, I need to talk about something you might have just noticed. I have had increasing webcam issues, and it annoyed me so much in the last recording that I set up another webcam that I previously purchased because I found it on a super steep clearance. It was too cheap to pass by. I'm trying that out, so forgive me if it goes wild or something in this video. That's what I'm using right now. So we begin with the state stating, the same day we had someone in Gilbert, Arizona firing a rifle out of a back window of a Jeep without a spare tire. We see Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell putting a tire and what could be a bench seat into a storage unit that Lori Vallow rented. That is correct. Now on October 3rd, the Nissan Rogue drives in again and stops at the unit. You can see it park at the same location. 2 people get out. This time it's Lori Vallow and Alex Cox. They go inside the unit. Alex Cox carries out a seat by himself. Then Alex Cox carries out a tire by himself. The state says the previous day we see Chad Daybell rolling the tire in, and here we see Alex Cox carrying the tire out. Correct. The previous day, we saw Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell carrying an object of similar size to a bench seat. And today, we saw Alex Cox carrying that out. And they say, by himself. Correct. Accurate, but they are pointing out how weak Chad is. I kind of wondered if that was going to make Lori mad. Videos showing the items going into the Nissan shows them leaving. It took them all of 4 minutes to remove everything. The items were in the unit for just about 24 hours after someone drove a Jeep without a tire on it and shot at Brandon. Alex Cox went to local firing ranges. Alex went to a range where you can shoot rifles. Sign-in records showed Alex Cox September 3rd and gave his phone number. On September 27th and 8th, he did, I think they say CQUINT, which is very close to his plate number. There were Alex Cox searching places to shoot. They show sign-ins with Alex Cox's phone number. They showed the almost license plate number just days before the shooting of Brandon. They mentioned the burner phone, bought at a Walmart 25 miles south of Rexburg. It isn't a bigger Walmart. That's added in to add in the they were trying to be sneaky, but they're really bad at it. The receipt for the burner phone was obtained and used on October 2nd, 2019 in Arizona. Lori objects. Foundation admitted. They show the receipt, bought with cash. They bring up track phone records. It matches the Walmart, as well as the date, time, serial numbers match. Flight records show Melanie flew to Idaho Falls and back to Mesa, Arizona in September. They are authenticated. Lori objects. Relevance. Well, I mean, it's a conspiracy, right? Admitted. Melanie is definitely being considered, as far as they're saying, an unindicted co-conspirator, right? Like, she is in this. As far as it seems like the state's case is, and there's an open investigation. They show the records. Idaho Falls is closest commercial flights to Rexburg. They found a device in Alex's garage that was still signed into Alex's Gmail account when they did the search warrant. They are so bad at being criminals. The records contained Wi-Fi, GPS, and other data around the shooting on October 2nd in 2019. It contains searches for places to shoot near Rexburg, projectiles for long range, how to load your own ammo, tinting shops, ballistic charts, and calculators, searches for man shot in Rexburg, searches for Dan's window tinting, searches for Brandon's address. The address was searched on the day before and the morning of the shooting. Then it was searches making their way back to Idaho Falls, and it got admitted. Google confirmed it was Alex Cox's account. Chrome searches included minute of angle, September 28th, searches for ammo types and calculators, ballistic trajectory calculator, September 30th, looked up Phoenix weather, 23rd, places to search near Rexburg, shooting Rexburg, outside shooting near Rexburg. Look for auto tints, 23rd, the same day that he contacted Dan's auto tint. Watched a YouTube video on how to load your own ammo. 24th, best projection for range with the 300 Winchester mag. Searches for 5.56 millimeter bullet drop at 500 yards. Oh, it was like 10 feet, Alex. You were really, really overestimating your skill. Another ballistic trajectory calc. And at 8:46 Idaho time on October 2nd, man shot in Gilbert, Arizona. Another search for a man shot in Gilbert, AZ, 10/2/2019. I am wondering at this point, with how incompetent Alex seems to be, did he think he actually hit Brandon and was trying to find out if he lived or died? One of the last searches included his ABC News Brandon Boudreaux. Maps were sent by Google, such as Dan's window tinting. October 1st, Alex Cox was looking for a location on Power Road. It's a Mexican restaurant. This was at 1:12 p.m. Okay, never mind. I'm sorry. He ordered the breakfast burrito at 1 p.m. I do that with some breakfast, like sausage biscuits, sausage gravy and biscuits, maybe some pancakes or waffles. I don't know about a breakfast potato burrito at 1 p.m. though. I don't know. That wouldn't be me. But I guess he knew any food that was there wouldn't match Lori's enchiladas, so he went with something safe. At 7:52, he searches for Brandon's address, multiple searches, and yeah, this is really bad. It's really bad. He did it again a couple hours before the shooting, looking for Brandon's house, looking for directions. After the shooting, he looked for locations in Arizona heading home towards Idaho Falls. He searched for what sounded like scenic locations off the beaten path, Farm Road, a location near a lake, Holbrook, Arizona, Moab, Utah, more directions till finally Idaho Falls Airport, where he would know where to go after that, I assume. Maybe someone met him there, who knows? Searching for the shooting in Gilbert, Arizona would have been Alex Cox was still driving home. So Alex Cox is driving home, going from place to place in his search while mixing in what happened with Brandon. The document with the searches are shown to the witness. Lori doesn't object. They show a map of all the locations, showing a path back to Idaho. And then, remember, once he got to Idaho and went to the location, he went to the storage unit with Lori. They also got Google records for one of Lori's accounts. They moved to admit the records. Lori says Foundation, Crawford admitted. He reviewed some of Lori's account, most of it. They go through searches that match her moving, searching how to get the back seat out of my Jeep, searched on October 2nd for Gilbert News. Yes, Lori herself was looking for Gilbert News. Just some of the searches provided by Google. Google authenticated it. Lori foundational objection to search. Admitted anyway. Yeah, this isn't going good for her. I'm really excited at this point to know what she's going to question this guy about. She did searches about apartments in Rexburg, Idaho. Searches for UPS change of address. This is just to lay the foundation. It's hers. Search for places in Rexburg. This is the guy that impounded Lori Value's Jeep. They saw the search to get the seat out of the Jeep Wrangler on September 30th, a couple days before the shooting. She looked up a YouTube video how to do it. They talked about what it looked like a rear seat being removed from the storage unit. Search for Gilbert News at 8:13 p.m. October 2nd. She visited the site looking. They mentioned the video at the storage unit again. Lori is up for questions. She has none. This man, he steps down and they're breaking for the day. All of this damning evidence and Lori has nothing to say. What do you say? But you say something. This is the guy. If you were like, but was she part of the conspiracy? If at any point you wanted to say, was she part of the conspiracy? This is the witness that did it, right? This puts it all together into a box. She was deeply involved. She's searching things she shouldn't be searching unless she knew things she shouldn't know. And she has nothing. Blew me away. But we're not done. We're not done. The final state witnesses tomorrow morning. Lori would need to have any witnesses she's going to have by lunch. And the state asks the question you have to ask with Lori. If Lori doesn't bother to put on a defense and call witnesses, do they go into closing tomorrow afternoon? The judge says that would be the intent. Lori has nothing to say, and court ends. So, closing will probably be rather long from the state. Go so late with Lori as well, if she doesn't put on the defense. I'm of the opinion after the first trial, she's not even going to try it. So if we go through Lori not putting on a defense, closing statements, closing arguments should be done tomorrow. I expect a verdict Thursday. Personally, I expect a verdict Thursday. My luck, remember, I'm wanting to play that game on Friday. It'll be Friday, everyone. Now, the good news is, no matter what, this trial is down to the verdict by Friday, okay? So that means for me, I can just have Nate Eaton, notifications on my phone, we're coming back, I will take a break, and I'll get my video out about the verdict. I'll do that, I'll make sure I get that out. If in any way possible, I can do it. So all of my worry about Friday, because Lori delayed the case by 2 days, is gone. What's crazy is, if Lori hadn't delayed this case, we still would have been finishing to either, the closest we would have finished would have been today because some witnesses couldn't come till Monday. So she didn't do much when she tried. But remember, she tried again. It seems like she tried again, or the judge is preemptively preventing her with what I've had above me the whole day because I think that's relevant. I think what this being filed was relevant. So, what do you think? Right? Like, I think I think she's gonna be found guilty. I think the fact that she had nothing to say with that last witness, why bother putting on a defense? Why bother? There's no witness you can call. Why bother? You gave up countering that witness. All the evidence, everything like that. I thought at least she'd be like, you don't know that that tire was from my Jeep for certain, do you? No. Do you know for sure that was a seat out of the back of my Jeep? No. She gave up. I think she's quitting. I think she's done. No point. Maybe she thought that her objections earlier, where they handed off the paper, she's like, I'll just go to appeal. Maybe she's got that in her head. I don't think we're getting the verdict tomorrow, though. I don't. I will say, now that we're at Verdict Watch, I might try to do a quick run on Thursday just to check. The new Pokemon set came out a couple weeks ago. I haven't found a single pack. I might make a run to the store, grab myself some food, prepare for Friday so I have something quick to cook, and check for the cards. My luck, whenever that happens, I'd probably be 2 or 3, maybe I'd go. When that happens is when they'll come back. It wouldn't be that big a deal for me putting out a video, though, because essentially I'd watch the verdict from my phone and then do a post video when I get home. I'd try to watch it on the way home as much, well, not watch, but listen to it as much as I can on the way home. Review anything I needed to when I get home to kind of like, freshen up, and I do a quick video, and it's probably going to get to you about the same amount of time. I honestly, I'm just blown away she didn't talk to this man. This is the man that pins the conspiracy on her, like, dead to rights, no way out of it. Nothing you can say in your closing is going to save you. You searched for news in Rexburg and then didn't question it, didn't have anything to say, didn't have anything to, like, hint that there's a reason you would have done it. I'll see you all in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if the webcam's working for you, something looks off, something I can work on. It's new. I gotta, play with settings still.